Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam, and on behalf of Book Soup, I'd like to thank you all for joining us for tonight's event with Zakiya Dalila Harris in conversation with Glory Edim, here to discuss the New York Times bestseller and Zakiya's debut novel, The Other Black Girl. Tonight's event will end with a Q&A, and to submit a question, please use the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen. And if you see a question on the list that you'd like for our speakers to answer, please click the like button, and it'll bump it up in the queue, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as time will allow. Please also feel free to engage with each other and the conversation in the chat area as you are already. Love to see you guys active over there since it's virtual. And we'll be hosting more virtual events in the near future, and you can learn more about them on our website by signing up for our email newsletter. And you can follow us on social media at BookSoup. You can follow us right here on our Crowdcast page, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which includes past events. And please support BookSoup and our author tonight by purchasing a copy of tonight's featured book. You can do that by clicking the green button right below the viewer screen. It'll redirect you to our website where you can finish the checkout process. And we do have signed copies, which is rare these days, especially having an author who is not local to Los Angeles, since we are an LA bookstore. So take advantage and get your signed copies before they're gone. And we're also open for in-store browsing. So if you are local to Los Angeles, you're welcome to stop by the store with a mask now, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we'd love to see you. And with that said, let me introduce our guest for this evening. Zakiya Dalila Harris spent nearly 3 years in editorial at Knopf Doubleday before leaving to write her New York Times bestselling debut novel, The Other Black Girl. Prior to working in publishing, Zakiya received her MFA in creative writing from the New School. Her essays and book reviews have appeared in Cosmopolitan, Guernica, and The Rumpus, and she lives in Brooklyn. Welcome, Zakiya. Glory Edim is the founder of The Well-Read Black Girl, our In Conversation guest tonight, a book club and digital platform that promotes Black literature and sisterhood. She won the Innovators Award at the 2017 Los Angeles Times Book Prizes and is a BookSoup resident at this point. So thank you for being back with us, Glory. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to our guest. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, BookSoup. Thank you, Sam. Zakiya, it's so awesome to be with you today. How are you?
So wonderful. I'm so excited to be chatting with you, Glory. Thank you so much. And thank you, BookSoup, also for having us tonight.
Yes, I'm just going to jump into it because I have 1,000,001 questions. Your debut novel is incredible for so many reasons. How does it feel to have your first book out and have it on the New York Times bestseller list? How do you feel?
I mean, it's insane. It is unlike anything that I really ever thought would happen. I've always wanted to write ever since I was really young. And I had a lot of, not different career changes, but I've done a lot of different kinds of jobs and had a lot of different kinds of ideas of what I would do. And so to be doing this thing that from day one I really was excited about is just phenomenal.
Well, it's well-deserved, without question. And I know you started in publishing.
Yes.
Tell us how it started from working in publishing to having this book. What was the origin story for this plot and this story?
Yeah, so I worked in publishing. It's no secret at this point. I was an editorial for 2.5, 3 years. And I really enjoyed a lot of it. I loved writing, but I also really got into the idea of editing, especially during my MFA at the New School, working on nonfiction and talking about writing in words. So that was something I was always really curious about. And so getting a job in publishing, which was really, really hard to do, was very exciting. And I thought, new path. So I enjoyed a lot of it, but there are other parts that I didn't enjoy besides the low pay, which is garbage. I didn't love, of course, being one of very, very few Black people and working in a place that felt like it did not value diversity, it did not necessarily value younger people, to be honest, in a lot of ways. It felt pretty stifled to me. And so, after spending time there, I should add that there was this one very important moment when I was in the bathroom. And at this point, I was like, you know what, I think this isn't for me. I'm thinking about leaving because just wasn't the thing anymore. I wanted to focus on my own writing. So I'm washing my hands in the bathroom and this other woman comes out of the bathroom stall, a Black woman. And I was like, who is this person? Where did she come from? Because I knew I was the only Black woman working on the floor at the time. And we didn't have any kind of interaction, but I went back to my desk and I was just thinking about this moment and how much I craved having another Black woman on my floor. And after that, I literally sat back down at my desk and started writing in the cubicle. And so the part I wrote was chapter 1 of Nella sitting in her cube, smelling those smells. And just, I wanted to talk about, of course, being the only one and then another one coming into the space. But also as I kept writing, I was just like, publishing is such a funny industry. It's just so funny. Corporate speak, all of those little microaggressions, everything. It was just so much fun to mine and made me think about my own time there and my own Blackness throughout my entire life.
What's so interesting about it is like, yes, it's focused on publishing, but the experiences that she goes through can be in any corporate setting, you know, whether you're working in finance, whether you're in the illegal setting, publishing, all of those like microaggressions and those feelings of just like displacement exist across industries. And I think you did such a great job of capturing that like discomfort and the lack of knowledge of her coworkers in the space and just being like the only one. And there's a rich history to that. And you start off the book with this beautiful epigraph, Black history is Black horror. And when I say it's beautiful, it's just like, it's so precise. Yes. And what was the reason you picked that exact thing? Because I was surprised by it. Because I think immediately just even seeing the title, I didn't know what to expect. And so I was like, oh, like, is this going to be a horror story? Is it going to be more like a mystery, a suspense? Like, what is this going to be? And so you set us up with that title. Why did you decide to have that epigraph in the beginning of the book?
Yeah, well, so I had seen Horror Noir, which is the documentary that Tanana Reid says those words, Black history is Black horror. She says it in the beginning, I believe. And I'd seen it right around the time when I was starting to write this book. And I'm a big horror fan, like big, like The Blob. It's in the book. I love The Blob, even though it's so bad in a lot of ways, of course, by our standards, but it's a classic. I love Night of the Living Dead, The Fly, The Twilight Zone. A lot of these things are things that I watched or consumed as a young person, and Stephen King. And so those have been my loves. And I never actually really, I mean, when I was a kid, I tried to write scary stories, but I never set out to write something that had horror elements. And so with this book, which definitely did not start out with those horror elements, I knew there was going to be a psychological thing happening. I knew it would be a thriller in some ways, but those parts came, the horror element came a little later. So last year when I was talking to my publishing house about, like, are you going to include an epigraph? And I thought about it, and I thought about all the different ways I could do it. But then I remembered that documentary and I rewatched it and I was like, of course, like this moment, the way she says it, of course, first of all, it's just amazing. Check out this documentary. I can't emphasize enough. And I should have said it's about the history of horror and Black people and the relation to horror in cinema over the last, going back to Birth of a Nation, which they start as the first horror movie, or not the first, but in the movie, it's the first one they cover. And so, I knew that I wanted to try to signal to readers that there was going to be this other element in the beginning. And I felt like that was, like you said, it's so precise. And I think it's real. Black history is Black horror. For years and years, and going back to slavery, to being taken from where we were and brought here. It's even from Africa, and lynchings and assassinations, all of it. It's things that we kind of have to just keep moving through and keep being people and humans and functioning. So all of those things, I won't say came while I was writing, but looked like as I kept going later on, and now looking back, it's like, of course, that's where my mind really was.
So with that in mind, how does it feel to have this book come out in such a turbulent time in history? You know, last year we were dealing with, everyone was calling the racial reckoning. And now we're having in the news, people are debating, you know, critical race theory. And there's so many different conversations around race and around, white supremacy and just like the idea, or even what's happening with Nicole Hannah-Jones in 1619. Like it's on the forefront of everyone's mind. And now you have placed those microaggressions, those feelings in a fictional novel that's based off of like real life events. Did you expect all of this to be happening during your your launch? I couldn't help but think about like the timing of all this, what have the conversations been like now that you've been on tour, now it's out in the world, people have really strong opinions. You're a Good Morning American book pick too. Like what has it been like having conversations about this plot?
Yeah, I mean, it was meta before last year, just because it was, of course, a lot of it was about me and ways, at least. But especially last year, I mean, when I was writing this book, I do talk about incidents happening. There's a wave. Nella's thinking about the wave and how at Wagner Books, all right, it's time for everyone to get trained in diversity again and trained in sensitivity again. And then it's no longer a thing. And for me, that wave that I was writing about in my head was 2015, 2016, when everything was really happening. And I mean, Philando Castile, Eric Garner, it just felt like there was a reckoning going on then. And then, of course, kind of fizzled out. And then so to have last year happen, was really surreal, and it was hard. Like last year, trying to work on this book and navigating, of course, the pandemic and then what's going on in the news, and then trying to do what Nella has a hard time doing, or at least in the book I talk about her doing, is like parsing out, okay, I need to like ignore what's happening in the world in order to be like a normal human or going to work and all those kinds of things. And so that was something like I was like, how do I get into that creative space again? And it was really, really difficult. And I think every Black creator had a similar problem to some degree. And so yeah, it was really bizarre. But I have to say, even before, because I sold the book in February of 2020, so by the skin of my teeth before the pandemic started. And I was having still hard conversations with publishing houses across the board, mostly white editors, and talking about how this book felt timely even then. So unfortunately, I feel like it's always going to be timely. But I'm hoping that it just means we'll be more likely to be able to have these conversations and see change.
Zakiya, Sam's going to hop on for a second because we're going to have a special guest. I think I'm going to bring my son up for a second.
Oh, yes.
He was taking a nap, but I think he's up. So Sam's going to ask you the next question, and I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
No problem at all.
Okay, great. So really enjoying the conversation so far, by the way. Love it.
Thank you.
So here is Glory's next question, which is, The Other Black Girl features an extraordinary mix of genres. It's dark comedy, horror, thriller, science fiction, and more all at the same time. How did you weave them all together, and why?
Yeah, well, so I kind of alluded to the horror elements, but I know for me, the sci-fi kind of psychological thriller parts came from also my love of Dateline, to be honest. I'm a big true crime person. And also just like women who are complicated, women who are messy, single white female. Of course, Get Out's not quite the best example, but I'm blanking out on all the other ones. But there are so many stories and movies and TV shows that I love about women who are unraveling. And I think it's really interesting, especially when it's a Black woman and it's happening to her. And you're wondering how much of it is actually happening, how much of it is in her head with Nella. And I think that's also a part of being a Black person moving through the world, is we're often trying to be like, okay, is that a racist slight? Or was that like, okay, how much, like, is this like dangerous or is this good for me? And those kind of navigations are things that I think can be really interesting and horrifying for a young Black woman who thinks she's found her dream job and thinks she's found her dream coworker in Hazel, and then suddenly it's not the case. So that was really what I wanted to do, of just like touching upon those everyday kind of things that maybe don't seem as frightening at first, but when you peel back what's happening and who they're happening to, and just trauma generational trauma of, again, history of Black people in the United States, it's like, of course, this is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering if a better comparison, Michaela Cole's show on HBO, I'm trying to think of the name of it right now.
I Will Destroy You.
Yes, that was...
I haven't watched it yet. I'm like waiting until I have the emotional bandwidth because
it's heavy. It's heavy, but it's amazing.
I've heard.
Amazing. So when you said those examples, I was also thinking of that show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I'm oh, there she is.
Hi. This is so cool.
Oh, you're muted, girl.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate that. So our next question, I would love to just go deeper into the friendship between Nella and well, not only does she like, maybe take a step back. Because you worked in publishing, do you feel like you had things in common with Nella? And how did you like really go about gathering inspiration? I know you said you were like, you had that experience in the bathroom and you were kind of like going through, but were there other things? Were you in conversation with other books? Were you other like artistic references to help you shape the character?
Yeah. Well, one besides, Horror was more so the epigraph and just the bigger arcs and things like that. But I had started reading Passing by Nella Larson not long before I started writing this. Yeah, and so Nella, of course, is named for her. I just love the name Nella. I think it's great. But also that book really, for me, I mean, I don't think it's technically a thriller, but it read to me like a thriller, especially when two Black women who are both able to pass as white women. One of these women's married to a white man who doesn't know. And those scenes of him being there in the room and the one who like knows the other woman's secret and wondering if he can tell that he's surrounded by Black women, it's absolutely terrifying.
Brilliant.
And I think it's that social tension and that nuance and that, of course, inside versus outside, like what's happening and all of those kind of things are things that I really, now looking back on my book, I'm like, oh, of course, I was really channeling my like inner Passing. Because I also think Nella and Hazel on their own way are passing. They're both presenting as Black women, but they're able to code switch and they're able to make the right references and able to move through the world of Wagner kind of undetected until, of course, I mean, it's more complicated. But so that was one. I mean, Sula by Toni Morrison, for sure. I'd read a few years before. Friendship, it's so great. That book is so beautiful. And yeah, I mean, also my own personal experience has definitely inspired this book, especially the ones of Nella's like background. I mean, I grew up in a suburb in Connecticut, like Nella. I like didn't even bother changing it to a different New England state. I went to UNC. She went to UVA. And
which I did appreciate because I'm a DC native and you know, the metropolitan area, everyone, if you don't stay in DC, everyone goes to UVA, Virginia Tech. So I was Virginia like, Tech. UVA.
Yeah, I almost went there. It's beautiful campus, beautiful, really nice people, but UNC has my heart, except for what's going down with the sixth. Yeah, it's a whole other conversation. Anywho, so a lot of the background of growing up mostly around white people, and I mean, my first tight-knit group of Black friends happened in college for me, and part of that, I mean, that was for many different reasons, but as a young person, a lot of other Black people said I talked like a white girl or like I participated too much, and so. I had this anxiety for a while, and that anxiety is very clearly in Nella as well throughout the book.
Can you talk about so we have Nella, but can you, without giving too much away for folks who haven't finished reading or in the middle of it, can you talk about the Hazel archetype and how you created her? And in the way they're similar, but then they're also like polar opposites too.
Yes.
And another like additional question would be how, if they didn't code switch, if they didn't like try to appease the masses, who would these characters be? I mean, they would be completely different, people. And so like, what would the non-code switching Nella and Hazel?
Yeah.
What would that world look like?
Yeah, I mean, so I love that. So Hazel, first of all, Hazel came out of, for me, I was really imagining who Nella imagines herself being if she had been raised around Black people. So Hazel's from Harlem. She has the cool dreadlocks. She's confident. She's working with the youth to be writers and creatives in Harlem. Like, she's doing all these things that Nella, because she had such a different upbringing and was raised again in the suburbs, like never had and is envious of, but then also wants to be around. Like, this is what she didn't have. And Hazel's presence at first seems like such a safe space for her, because she has had her own kind of Black friendship as well with Malika, of course, outside of the workplace. So she has finally in the last few years started to embrace that part of herself and get to know a part of herself that she never really got to know. But now she's like, I can have this at work too. This is great. So that's really where Hazel came from for me. She's also, though, at the extreme, I think, this idea of branded Blackness that I think a lot of people have of us in certain circles. I particularly made her a certain way because I do think in a lot of ways, like, we are commodified. We are there to be consumed, and there are cool parts of us that other white people want. And, that's, they want to be around it. And her version of Blackness is shinier than Nella's. And I wanted to explore what that even means and how that affects Nella. So I think without the code switching, though, I think without the code switching, they would have been friends. I imagine them, well, let's see, because I also kind of see Nella code switching with Hazel too, because I think that the way that I'm trying to think how to say this. I think Nella has multiple layers because she is the kind of person who really fits herself into whatever situation she's in. So it's interesting to try to peel back who she would be. I haven't gotten this question clearly, but I think it's great. I like to think they'd be friends though, and they would be helping each other out.
It's so interesting. And I think how whatever your lived experience, when you're reading something like this, like you're going to bring it to the plot. So, for me, I went to historically Black college. I went to Howard. We have a, he's like, yes, I agree.
Yes.
And naturally for me, I can imagine a world where, I've met a lot of Nellas. I've met a lot of people that aren't able to bring their full selves to a space. And I would even say that, like, perhaps before I attended at HBCU, I felt that energy of trying to like code switch and trying to, insert myself in places or like mold myself a little bit. But then attending Howard really helped me feel confident in myself, feel really just more dynamic and more like uncompromising, so it's like whenever I walk into space, I'm going to be Glory. I'm going to be like my full self, and I'm not going to code switch or anything else. But that requires like so much feeling rooted in yourself and like being not being afraid, and definitely. That confidence that Hazel has, it is definitely one of those things that requires practice. And, so it's that's like, sorry. No,
it's okay.
So I definitely, like, when I was reading it, I was like, wow, like, if Nella had like been in different environments similar to Hazel's, it could have been different.
Right? Yeah. Well, I also think you're so right. I think that they are so similar. And really what sets them apart is their philosophies on how to move up. And I think, stripping away, well, there's a lot to strip away, but and there's the eyes watching them. There's Wagner Books watching them. There's them knowing they're being watched and then having to respond to that. Like, all of those things, I think, just complicate them. And yeah, I don't want to give anything else away. So
yeah, I definitely no spoilers, no spoilers. But there is something of just like feeling like you're being watched or critiqued or like judged at a different standard because you're a person of color. And
yes.
that is what I really appreciated you critiquing and giving that. And I think whoever is reading it has to know that's what you're doing. Like, you know, you have suspense, horror, like all these different things, but you also have like the reality, the day-to-day experiences for so many, you know, women of color in the workspace. Like that isn't exaggerated at all. But like discomfort and that level of just like, you know, feeling like less than, you know, simply because it's like, okay, my opinion isn't valued in this space because of my gender or my race. It's like,
right.
It's very apparent. Like you can feel that, and it's hard to articulate to other people because they're just like, "What are you talking about? Like that's not happening." It's like, yes, it is. So you're having this weird conversation, and then self-doubt can creep in. Everything else. It's just such a like, it's, you know, not to curse, but such a mind fuck.
Yeah. No, well, that's what I was talking with your last question with Sam about, is like how much of it is like for us, and a lot of minorities, I think, have this experience too. But I feel especially like I'm constantly like, was that like a racist snub, or like was that why did you say this? And like, there's so much more to think about. And I mean, it's half the time like, am I being gaslit? All of those things. It's a lot. And I think that, you know, we can find racism has many different faces. It's not just, of course, I mean, we know this. It's not just an epithet. It can be in things that you imply. It can be in the way that you speak and the way you grab your purse, or all of those things. And so, yeah, there's just so much nuance.
Yeah, and I really appreciate, again, like placing it in fiction allows us to talk about it in a different way. And I hope the readers are able to sit with it and like unpack it, you know, a little bit more. Is there anything in particular that you were hoping that and this is definitely one of those questions that if you're like, no, I wasn't thinking about that at all, that's fine too. But did you have like key messages or takeaways you wanted the reader to have after they close this book? Like, was that something you were thinking as you were writing?
I mean, not at first. Not at first. I think I was just kind of going with it and seeing where it went. But definitely with the ending, I knew how it was going to end very early on in the process. So I did, in a way, my subconscious knew what I wanted readers to take away, which is, you know, I mean, I'm not going to say it, but I ended it that way for a reason, because I want people to keep talking about it. And I don't want anyone to be let off the hook. Any of the characters, any of the white characters, any of the Black characters in the book, to be honest, like everyone, I wanted to show just the nuances and how multifaceted Black women are, and how different we feel about certain things, and how our lines, you know, between code switching and selling out are different, and all of that. So I really wanted to show that, just how diverse we are. But also, yeah, I mean, I think that's my main message. And then, of course, looking back on it, and when I was drafting again and again, revising, like, of course, what we go through day to day. But I feel like that's something that it just came out on the page for me. It wasn't something I was really necessarily thinking about. And then now, of course, like chatting with you and chatting with other Black readers, it's like the feeling like I got it right, at least for some people, not all readers, of course, but that feeling and that validation for them, that people have expressed that they're excited about it, and I am excited. I feel bad for triggering certain things, but yeah.
Well, I did appreciate it, because we read so many books in the Well-Read Black Girl universe, and my favorite ones are when people are just like on both sides, and they're sharing their perspectives, and they're really passionate about it. And your book, as my son agrees, was. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's you're right. But your book was definitely one that like left readers feeling very passionate. And there's actually a question in the chat that I'd like you to address for sure, because there is, can you actually see the chat? Can you see the question too?
I think so. Hold on. Let me see. Also, really quickly, I'm sorry, I'm getting over a little summer head cold, so I'm just going to cough and mute myself really quick, and I'm going to reread the question.
Yeah, no problem.
Woo, summer colds are no fun. All right, let's see. I think I can pull it up. Okay. Awesome. So, should I read it?
The end of it. Oh, so sorry.
That's okay.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I can read it. In your book, The Other Black Girl, Nella is upset by the way Colin represents his character, Sharika. Sorry. Can you say that for me? I can't even read.
Sure. No, it's okay. Trisha. Or Tricia.
Yes. As a reader, I got the point. However, I feel icky and offended by the use of vulgar cursing that all the Black women use in your story, despite being educated and having a wide use of vocabulary, not to mention the occupation being writers. My question to you is, how does your representation of them differ that much from the fictional Colin?
Yeah, so thank you so much, Ty, for this question. Yeah, so as we were just talking about, my message, or at least my hope with this book, was to show just how diverse and multifaceted and sometimes messy Black women are, and showing that by various examples, of course, Nella and Kendra Ray and Diana and Shani, because I do think that if we don't allow them to be human, it's not great. It's not good. Like, they deserve to be able to say certain things how they feel. I mean, Kendra Ray's entire storyline in the book really is about, talking about what's on her mind, and what happens with that. And we are often under so much duress as Black women already. Sometimes we do need to express ourselves in certain ways, but we should also be allowed to do that however we see fit, of course, without hurting other people. And so, yeah, I mean, I think also in terms of Colin, totally understand that that's a fair point, but Colin doesn't show Trisha in all her humanity at all. And that's part of the problem. The biggest problem, actually, is that she is so one-dimensional, and we never see her doing anything else. Whereas with all of these characters, I really wanted to show them in, at their highs and at their lows. And so, yeah, I just really wanted to do that. So it's a really fair question, though. It's funny too, because I was definitely raised not to curse at all. But it's one of those things, I think, too, like artistically, I feel like sometimes it is necessary, as long as it's not in excess, for me personally, but everyone has their own opinion.
Yeah, and we were talking about this earlier. Another book that kind of set everyone on high, had very intense emotions, was Luster. And we had Raven as part of the book club, and she had a very similar perspective as you, of just, artistic freedom and building in nuance and allowing characters to be messy and complicated. And, there are times where there is a different level of respectability, and there's times where people are cursing and have, are showing different sides of themselves. We see it in television all the time. We watch a show like Insecure, with Issa Rae, it just is showing different facets of the character. And I don't think there's, like, as you said, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but there's no like right or wrong. And we should have the freedom to be messy and to curse as well, without judgment. Thank you. I love that question. And I love that I love the fact that we're even unpacking these ideas in a public forum and allowing for us to just, talk about what that means and what it feels to be represented as the only one and in public spaces. So because in a lot of ways you're doing that, your characters are doing that, but you as well as as an author, like you're on these incredible platforms. I'll say it one more time, but Good Morning America, everyone watches it. And at times, do you feel like you're representing everyone? Do you feel like the weight of that? And how do you not let it overwhelm you?
I mean, that's definitely, it's a lot. I think the thing that for me really keeps me going is to talking to other Black creatives and Black writers. It's just that really keeps me grounded, especially in the diversity of what we're all doing. Raven Leilani's Lester is one of my favorite reads this year. She's amazing. I love that book. I love how messy her character is. I think it's so realistic, and Black women are not allowed to be messy either. And I think that's another thing. And I think the more we see of us, the more nuance, again, like you said, that we see, I think the better. We shouldn't, necessarily be held to a different standard than everyone else. But sorry, I'm going off on a tangent thinking about how much I love Lester. So that's one of the ways. And I think for me, I think that pressure is always going to be there of like being the only one. And I have a therapist. It's great now. This is new for me. So that's been helping, and just taking a day at a time. And again, conversations like these really just are so wonderful, knowing I'm not alone. There's a community out there.
Well, your creative force is expanding into different mediums. Congratulations on your work with Hulu.
Thank you.
So can you tell us a little bit more about that? We are at, Book Soup, and it is Hollywood. It's
yes.
What's that experience like, and how are you part a producer? Are you writing? Like, tell us all about that too.
Yeah. So my title, I believe, and I say I believe because it feels like it's been so long since it happened, and I'm in the writing phase right now, but executive producer, one of them, and I'm co-writing it with Rashida Jones. So it's been so much fun. We've been working on the pilot. There's so many things that couldn't necessarily make it into the book, or things that, wouldn't necessarily work as well in book form that we're considering for the show. And it's just been, again, really exciting to imagine the book in that world, and then also thinking about like the music and the outfits and like the character storylines, like thinking about Owen and like what Owen's really about, and like Malika. So it's really fun. I've had such a good experience, and just I hope we can share stuff with everyone soon.
I cannot wait. In my mind, I'm already casting. So I actually shared this with another friend recently. I love the actress Levy Simone. She's in Greenleaf.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
She is so incredible. So just putting that in the universe for her. She's so awesome. I think she'd be a great Hazel.
I'm writing this down because I'm terrible with actresses and actors' names. So like when anyone asks me, I'm like, I don't have.
No worry. I'll text it to you. I'll text
Send
it to you.
Me. Yeah. Just cast the entire thing for me, please.
We will. The whole community will throw it in the chat. It's gonna be so much fun. I can't wait. I think that I read so many books, but I am on the same wave of television and films too. I just love consuming just incredible Black art. So I can't wait for that to be live. On the other side of that, the cover art of this book is so stunning. I actually would love to have a print. I don't know if your illustrator is providing that for anyone, but can you talk about? Yeah, he likes it too. Do you want to see it?
So shiny.
Yes, he really does. He likes it. So what was it I know for me, it was such for my anthology, I was so particular about the energy and the vibe and the colors. Yes. It does make a difference, especially in this in this Instagram world. Tell me about it.
Yeah, of course. So the cover, so I wish you could see the full thing behind me, but yeah, so when I started writing this book, I knew that I wanted to have a Black artist do the cover if possible. And I also knew I wanted the cover to scream, like, this is a Black book, besides the title, because like that's obvious, but there are a lot of girl books out there, a lot of them. And, you know, having worked in publishing, I also knew how much weight. I mean, I think as a consumer, we all know that as well, but I just remembered being on the other side and having those cover conversations and how sometimes the differences would be so subtle and we'd spend just like days figuring out which would work. So anyway, I had thoughts about what it would be like. And so my agent and I made a list of Black artists from Instagram and that we found online. And one of them was Temi Coker. Temi Coker is a Nigerian-born artist. I believe he lives in Texas. And he designed the artwork that this was kind of reappropriated from, called My Black is Beautiful. And he made it for Twitter for Juneteenth last year. And my team found it. I actually didn't even find this. I didn't see the specific artwork. I don't think it was on his Instagram yet, or I don't remember. But so they found it. They asked him if they could license it. And this image is a little different. It's flipped. There are different colors. I actually have behind me, my agent got me the print. You have to find it, Glory. It's beautiful. There's like oranges and reds and yellows behind her, but it's gonna be up on my wall soon, just getting it framed. And yeah, I mean, I love it. It's a profile view, of course, so it like immediately reminds me of like Nefertiti, like regal, royal, this like royal blue, and then of course the pick, the fist pick is something that I have myself. I have a pick like this that I bought a few years ago in Brooklyn, and my dad had one like 30 or however many years ago, and he had hair. And they didn't know about any of that, but this just like divine, it just all worked out. And I'm so excited about it. So yeah, check out the artwork. It's gorgeous.
It's so beautiful. And, you know, we don't judge books by their cover. You know, we like to read what's the substance inside, but it doesn't hurt when it's like stunning and just so beautiful. Like I was really taken by it. Just like her profile. Yes. The pick earrings and just the color, like because I also, I don't know if this was intentional, but just like that contrast with the blue and, you know, it made me think of just like the American culture and like what that means, you know, like the representation. I really thought it was just a beautiful pairing. So we're going to use like the last like 10 minutes or so for questions. If folks have questions, please place them in the chat or inside the ask a question box. But if you don't, we can keep chatting and my son will be in the background saying hello.
What's his name? Or
oh no, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. I mean, he's here. His name is Zikomo. And it's short for short, we call him Zeke, and it means thank you. Yeah.
Oh, a fellow Zier.
Yes, yeah.
I love a fellow Zier. That's a beautiful name.
Thank you. Yeah, and he's one and very rambunctious. So it's like touching everything. So I appreciate you just being so understanding.
Oh my God, no. Are you kidding? I'm so happy to be seeing a child. It's so cute.
Oh my gosh. He's like touching everything, but okay, I'll just try to stay still. So if there are no questions, I did want to ask you just about you know, I love to ask people what they're currently reading and what's inspiring them. Is there anything that you're like reading right now that's on your nightstand that like we should check out, or you're just like, oh, this is it?
Yeah, I am currently devouring 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I'm so mad it took me so long to read. It's so good. It's so good. The time jumps, the Black love, the Black unlove, Black authors. It's also got that meta thing going on in a lot of ways. And the dialogue is so good. And so she's also, Tia Williams is just wonderful. So
she's so wonderful.
Yeah.
Listen, that opening scene had me on the floor. Oh
I know.
God. I was like, what is happening?
I know. It's so brave. And I think that's the thing that I love too, is like, it really goes there in a way that I also feel like, you know, we don't get to see Black characters in this way, at least in books, I think. So it's been so much fun to just be along on this ride. So 7 days in June. Let's see. I mean, oh gosh, I feel like I always go blank on what I'm reading. But I mean, I always say, because it's so good and everyone should read it if they haven't, the final revival of Opal and Nev by Donnie Walton. It's amazing. So good. And then All Her Little Secrets by Wanda M. Morris, which comes out in November. It's not yet, but pre-order it. It's like, I don't think I mean, we talked earlier about comps and how like comps are like kind of ridiculous. But I think what they say is like the firm-ish kind of thing meets, I can't remember the other comp, but like with Black people. So highly recommend. The protagonist is a strong, very complicated and also a little messy Black protagonist. Are you seeing a theme here, Glory? What I like to read?
I am with you. If we started a book club of 2, I'm with it. Yeah, I
would love that.
Characters. I like all the complicated, all the unexpected, all the unpredictable. I'm with it 100%. I mean, clearly, I love the opening scene of Tia's book, because like your book too. Like your opening, I was just like, what is happening? It's so good. Like I appreciate that. Like I like things that are just like different and take you along for a ride. It's like, I don't know where I'm going, but it's gonna be good somewhere good.
Thank you.
I do have another question just around music, and just like, because I also love, just like film, I love a good soundtrack, and I know music played like a part of your writing experience. Can you tell us like how that inspired you, what you were listening to, what got you in the mood to like write The Other Black Girl?
Yeah, so I love this question because I'm a big music person. Like if people ask me what I would do or what I like my dream job if I wasn't a writer, I would say a DJ, because I love like falling down like, oh, this person sampled this and this and like that kind of thing. And so so when I write, I also almost always have to have music. Like unless I'm on a deadline, it's music, and it's music with words. So a lot of Janet Jackson, who's not on the soundtrack. I was trying to think more about like the characters in the book when I was making the soundtrack. But personally, I was listening to a lot of Janet Jackson, Beyonce, but also Miles Davis, like in the early mornings when I would wake up to write, because after I quit publishing, I should say, I started doing lots of part-time jobs. So I worked at cupcake shop for a little while, which was very hard. So I didn't stay there very long, the frosting. But then I got a job teaching creative writing to children part-time at a nonprofit in New York, which is where I live. And so that was like a nice back to basics, but it also meant weird hours. So I would wake up really early. And if I woke up really early, it would be at like 5 or 6, whatever. And I'd like put on my Miles Davis or like Coltrane and just like type in the darkness, so I didn't wake up my partner because we're in a studio. But so it depended on the mood. But with the soundtrack, which I hope everyone takes a listen to, it's on Spotify, posted by Atria Books. I really wanted to blend. There are a few songs that represent all of them. Oh man, I don't have it in front of me. I'm Every Woman by Chaka Khan, of course, which is such a wonderful song. But also when I think about it, sometimes I'm like, oh, but we do have to be every woman. Like Black women have to be. And I really thought about it literally in terms of like code switching and showing up to work and trying to be a person, all of those things. So that song, Fight the Power, of course, Always and Forever, Spike Lee, love Do the Right Thing. And also, of course, is one of Nella's favorite, and Hazel, everyone in the book loves Spike Lee. So yeah, it was really fun because for me, music is just it really takes me to the place I need to be emotionally. And if I'm feeling stressed, it always chills me out. If I'm feeling like I'm never going to get to this before my deadline, like that powers me through, or at least makes me feel a little better about taking my time. So I just am all for it. Are you a music person though? Because I feel like not everyone's into like while you're writing or reading. Or...
Yes, I listen, but I'm the opposite. I can't do words, so I'll do like I can do like some classical music. I can do a lot of jazz, like when you were saying Miles Davis or like some Alice Coltrane. Just like
so good.
Like like I can be in the vibe, but it has to be instrumental when I'm like writing. But then like just like to pump myself up like for the day, like I definitely listen to a lot. I love like Afrobeat. I love like right now I'm really into Doja Cat. I feel really old. Even the way I just said it was like four syllables or something. Like, but I love her. I'm just like, just the playfulness.
She's so fun. She doesn't take herself. I mean, from what I only know a few songs, so I'm also like,
yeah, I'm probably listening to the same 4 songs you're listening to. I don't know, but like,
probably.
I just love high energy and really playful. Just like, I mean, I honestly, this is a common theme, whether it's like in film or television or books, publishing. I just love art that like pushes boundaries and can still, and it's like pokes fun at itself. Like Doja Cat is like, she's just is like, she's fun, she doesn't take herself too seriously. And who else? Or just like the visuals behind stuff. The people that love like paying tribute or sampling or referencing other artists is like so much fun, because it's like an Easter egg type situation. We're like, what's that from? Like, what are they? It's like, it's all a puzzle. Art is such a puzzle. It's like it's your job to like figure it out and put the pieces together.
I love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, even like with the question I asked you earlier, just like, what is your working conversation with? Like, I love the fact that you said Nella Larson, because I was thinking about that to some regard too. It's like, this is like interesting, like just like take on colorism and the dynamics of a Black space, and there's some things, as I mentioned earlier, that like I could see really clearly, and I feel like other like people of color could relate immediately, whereas another reader might have a completely different perspective or see it in a different way. But it's just like, again, what are you bringing, your lived experience to the art? Like, how are you interpreting everything? Anyway, I'm really honored to talk to you. I think like you're so talented. I can't wait to see what you do next, whether it's in film, your next book. I know you just finished this one, but I hope I can't wait to see what happens. I know it is. I really feel like you have such great things ahead of you, and to be like part of the, you're the beginning journey, and just talking to you now, like I just know like a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, we're still gonna be saying your name. So thank you so much.
Glory, you're gonna bring me to tears. Oh my goodness, thank you. That means so much to me, truly. I'm so excited that we got to chat and got to meet. I know like my earlier publishing self right now would never have thought this would happen. So this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really my honor. Thank you. Thank you, BookSoup. Thank you everyone for watching and being so understanding when I went into pandemic parenting mode. Sorry. But this has been a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone. So
much fun.
Sam, are you gonna come back online or okay?
Sorry, I was lagging a little bit, but I'm here. Thank you both so much for being with us. Gloria, it's always a joy to have you at BookSoup. Zakiya, congratulations again.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see more from you too. So, I mean, it's just amazing. I was telling her earlier that what she's doing right now is like the writer's dream. So putting it out there. And excited for you. And thank you for being with us at BookSoup. And thank you for sending us signed copies. So reminder to get your signed copy if you haven't yet at the green button below. And thank you all for joining us for such a wonderful conversation. And everyone have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thank you, BookSoup. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Glory. Good night.
Good night. Lagging again.